Hi, Tracy here from Indigo Journey, back again to talk to you about strategies on how to release and relieve some of that overwhelm. If you haven't seen the last two videos where I've spoken about this, I encourage you to go back and check them out. I shared with you a little bit about a woman that I used to work with many years ago, or several years ago, where we addressed the overwhelm that she was experiencing that had kind of pushed her to her limits before her child even came out. And then once her child came out, it just felt like too much. And she really struggled with that idea because she wanted to be, that supportive, loving parent that she had always prided herself in being. But things had just become too much and she didn't know which way to turn, how to relieve some of those stresses and those pressures. So we spoke about the strategies that I worked with her. I supported her to create a list of all of the things that had created overwhelm. And then we worked through that, and I won't say any more because you can check that out in the last two videos. But one of the things we spoke about was choice, recognizing in that list of things that was creating all of the overwhelm, recognizing where you had choice. And this is such a powerful realization when it happens. I can't emphasize this enough. I've worked with many parents working through this process, this writing activity, where they realize that there are so many things on their list that they have choice in whether or not they do them. They may still choose to do them. And as I mentioned in the last video, that's okay if you still choose to do them. But once you know you have choice, that in itself can relieve some of the stress. And so what I wanted to talk to you about today is that it's kind of simple. You write a list of all the things and you tick off where you've got choice and where you don't, and then you decide what you're going to do in the areas that you do have choice. Simple, right? Yep. Simple, but not necessarily easy. And I wanted to really bring this up because I was concerned after I finished the last video. I was like, oh, maybe I made that sound like it's easier than what it actually is. And like for some of you, maybe it is really easy. Maybe you can just write a list and you can tick off and you can make the changes that you need to make. But I feel for a lot of people, and I know from a lot of people that I've worked with, and to be honest, my own personal experience, that when we need to try and create change, that can be difficult. It can be really difficult to do, especially on your own. And when we're talking about making change around handing over or sharing some of the things that we've felt really responsible for in the past, especially if you're one of those people that takes on responsibility for everybody and everything, then handing over some of that responsibility, relinquishing some of it, or completely, letting go of big chunks of it can be overwhelming in itself. And I know with some parents that I've worked with, as we've gone through that list, they've, whilst they're sitting with me, it's felt like a huge relief. And then when they went home and tried to enact some of these changes in real time in their lives, that in itself created more overwhelm. And of course, that's not what we're looking for, because the whole purpose of this is to reduce overwhelm. So they reverted back really quickly to just doing everything themselves and not sharing any of the responsibility, not asking for help, and not allowing anyone else to take on any extra tasks. So what I wanted to talk to you today about is making sure that you put the supports in place that you need so that you can be successful at this, not expecting or not having unrealistic expectations of yourself. So the exercise itself sounds like it could be done in 10 minutes or half an hour. And that's true. So writing the list, I think, is important to get that written, get that all out in one setting or one sitting. And then you might need to take some time out. So this might be something that you do over a week, or even maybe a couple of weeks if you're doing it on your own. What I would really encourage you to do, though, is once you have that list, if not beforehand, is to seek some support working through that list around what can be shared, what can be handballed completely, what can you relinquish in relation to your responsibilities and your excess to-do list, some of the tasks that you have on there. Now, when I say letting go of some of your responsibilities, of course, I'm not saying, I'm not suggesting that you need to let go of responsibilities of your children or your job or any of the other things. It's kind of handing over some of it, sharing some of it, maybe with a partner, maybe with friends, maybe with family members, maybe with your kids. Like depending on what it is, we go into quite a bit of detail around who might be that helping person. But so coming back to that is, this is important to work through with someone else. Now, I would suggest a professional who has no connection to this to-do list or responsibility list, because if you're doing it with someone who, like, let's say your partner, for example, and they might be looking at the list and they might be thinking, well, you could probably share that with me, but I don't want to say that out loud because I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed myself. So I don't want to take on anything extra. And so I'm not going to point that out, or I'm not going to support or encourage that part. Now, that's fair enough. It's reasonable. That's human behavior. And they may not even go through that whole thought process to come to that outcome. It might be just an instinct, which is more likely. But when you do it with somebody else who's completely separate, then they're able to do it without the filter of, oh, this is going to mean more work for me or more responsibility for me or more pressure for me. The other thing is, you could ask a friend or another family member that doesn't live in your household who you're not asking to do tasks. And they might also have some bias around, let's just talk about things that you might share, responsibilities you might share with your partner. So they might have some biases around gender roles. So it might be that, it doesn't even enter their mind that you could share some of these responsibilities with your partner or ask them to take on some of the responsibilities. Or it might be that they have a bit of an opinion or attitude about your partner, that they're, I don't know, lazy, or that they are already doing too much, or, anything in between. And so they might not support or encourage that suggestion. Again, it might not even enter their mind if they've already got these biases. Remembering biases aren't necessarily a bad thing. What's important is that we become aware of them. And, whilst we're talking about biases, you could have your own. In fact, let me reframe that. You will have your own. We all have biases in relation to most things. The important thing is that we reflect on them, become aware of them, and then see what we need to do about those. So like I suggested, I would encourage you to seek out some professional support, whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist, or even for some people, they have an opportunity to chat with their GP or anyone else that might be helpful for you. But the more removed they are from these pressures and from these responsibilities, the better that might be, because the less bias they're going to have, and the less that will influence their support to you. So how can a person help you in that sense? They can work through that list with you, step by step through that list, and ask you, is that your choice? Does that have to be your responsibility? Is there anyone else that can do that? Are there people that you can ask for help? Things like this, without having any, like I said, any attachment to that. And when you answer that question, they can ask, are you sure? Because I encourage you to do that, and you will have seen that in previous videos where I say, and then ask yourself, are you sure? Or is there anything else? What else? The problem is when we're asking ourselves and we're not, face to face with someone else, is we're not always 100% honest. We think we're being honest, but we don't necessarily really respond to that question honestly. So that's just a quick overview of why and how extra support can happen. And seriously, it sounds simple, like I said, and it is simple, but it really isn't that easy. And so don't give yourself a hard time if you're finding it really difficult and you do feel like you want to ask for help, because I'm encouraging it for a reason. Everybody I've worked with has talked about how helpful it was when they were able to work through this with me and or with other people in their lives. So I hope that's helpful. And if it is, and you want to hear more and you want to continue to learn and to, keep ditching that overwhelm, releasing it, letting it go, and perhaps taking on a little less responsibility, then please subscribe to my channel, like this video, you know all of the things, and of course, share it with anyone that you know that might also benefit. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.